Hey everybody, what's going on? It's your girl Camille Essex. I'm host of the Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast where innovators and creators connect. We have a great conversation going on tonight. This will be pretty much what I call it's like a crossover episode. The host of the Let's Rap podcast, they're going to sit down and talk to me tonight. We're going to have a great conversation. But what I need you to do, everybody, is hit that notification bell and subscribe right now. And if you have not done so, go right now to my YouTube channel, do the same, and like, comment, and share. That way we can have you all catch this replay if you're not in right now. And I'm telling you, it's going to be a great conversation. So with that being said, the gentleman of the Let's Rap podcast, hop on in. Jay, I think we can't see him, and we need him to come on stage.
I apologize when y'all did me.
Yeah, but we need to see you.
Yeah.
I'm
So when you
I'm,
get to where
I'm
you
sorry.
can,
I'm not in a place to be seen right this second. Give me like 10, 15 minutes, and I'll be good. I
no
apologize.
problem.
I had a scheduling issue.
No problem. I will be right here. Okay.
All right, sounds good.
And be safe driving.
Yeah.
Well, it's dangerous out here in these streets.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
Introduce yourself. I don't want to mess up. Is it
Philosophical. I get that a lot. Yeah, no worries.
Like how I saw it.
Yeah. I've been thinking about doing a name change, but hey, it's kind of stuck with me for a little while. But yeah, philosophical from the Let's Rock podcast. I really appreciate. I want to first appreciate you, Camille, for allowing myself and Jay this opportunity to be on your show tonight. And want to thank you first and foremost to you and your audience for allowing us on this platform. That being said, philosophical from the Let's Rock podcast, we are a men's focused podcast. Hits the word, rap. Trying to mend a lot of the, relationships, decision making, marriages. We speak on a lot of barbershop talk and just real talk, real speak, allowing basically a platform allow men to have an open space to, be vulnerable, have conversations, and really speak on the mind of the men, but also speaking on a man's perspective, but also a female's perspective on different issues that people may need help with.
Cool. Now, are you from Baltimore or New York?
So I am from the PG County, Maryland, DMV area.
They cheer you, and I was like, oh, I know that one.
Yeah. So I'm a hat connoisseur. A lot of our episodes, I wear a lot of different hats, football, baseball, anything like that. So yeah.
Cool. That's what's up. And give us a little bit more about your personal background.
Oh, so my personal background has basically been, kind of the journey of telling my story, making the wrong decisions. Of course, no one's perfect in this world. Making the wrong decisions as far as, investments, relationships, life, and really trying to mend a lot of the environment I was brought up on, with my dad and mom and different things like that. And just being able to mend those relationships with family, friends, and a lot of self-reflection with me, on a personal note, has been able to, bring growth to myself, and also being able to help others has also been something I really enjoyed. That's kind of the premise of how this podcast came into fruition.
Awesome. So with that philosophical, one of the terms we've been using two terms throughout the season of this podcast, talking to my brothers, just getting different perspectives and their thoughts on this. And before I do that, if you have not liked or shared or subscribed, please go ahead and do that right now. We're about to get into the think of things with this conversation. Phil, as far as we've been talking about performance exhaustion in our brothers, and that's coming from achieving, getting the bag, getting a degree, getting the numbers, trying to go viral.
Yeah.
But yet you're tired. And then in that, really not being able to be emotionally available for the loved ones in your life. So can you kind of unpack your perspective on what performance exhaustion means to you and what that looks like?
So I think a lot of times there's such a misinterpretation of getting the bag, right?
Right.
I think with us men, we try to have this Superman complex to where within relationships, within our career, within our personal life, there's this sense of achievement and accomplishments that we have to feel empowered, right? And I think a lot of times is what happens is we as men, we try to tackle on different things without accomplishing, what we need to do, right?
Right.
Um, when we were growing up, right? And it's different for every household.
Mhm.
We're told to get your high school diploma, go to college, get your degree,
Right.
and get that job that you're looking for. But a lot of times, what happens is that we as men, especially today, we want that process accelerated,
Right.
right? And what's going on is we put the cart before the horse to where a lot of our men out here, we're trying to find ourselves, we're trying to find ourselves in the career space, we're trying to get the quick fix and accelerate by making a certain amount of money to impress and get the relationship we feel we deserve. So what happens is that you know um, we we ignore where we're trying to go. We ignore who we're trying to be by getting in relationships, but trying to find ourselves career wise. And what that means is that we can't really keep up with the expectations of what that entails because on one end you're trying to lift up yourself as far as financial wise, support wise, emotional wise, but on the other end you're trying to chase this goal of having a relationship or you know getting out of your I mean, sorry to say this to a lot of our men, getting out of your mom's house, trying to better yourself as an individual, that we're trying to accomplish and take on so many things at one time when um, a lot of our men out there don't have a father figure or don't have that male type of mentor in the background to say, hey, take your time, be patient. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because things do change. Things do, life changes. So you never know what could happen. So
And doesn't something suffer? Like if you're not balanced properly,
yeah.
something gets left out, right?
Yeah, if you're not grounded, what happens is that you're putting pressure on yourself to you take yourself out of the picture. You're trying to impress and make someone else happy, but on the other end, what about you? So that's pressure on you for the performance.
Mm.
You become exhausted, you become tired, you become stressed, you become frustrated because you put so much effort in a relationship, in a job, on in your daily life, and sometimes it becomes exhaustion to the fact that you're just tired. You don't have any energy to do anything.
Mm.
And that's hard. It's hard as a man because you're trying to be the hero and fix everything, but you ignore yourself.
So then what does that look like when you do hit that point when you are tired as a man, as a brother out here getting it? Like short tempered,
Mhm.
irritable, patience is at a low. Um, not all, some have anger management. It could come out in so many different ways. So can you kind of dig into what that looks like when you have reached that point of exhaustion?
Yeah.
When you are in, we're talking about performance exhaustion and what that looks like philosophical.
So I know for me, I went through this. For me, I feel like performance exhaustion causes a lot of depression. It causes a lot of, for me, suicidal thoughts, a lot of like, feeling down on myself.
Yeah.
So the advice I would give to a lot of men is really, I know for me, I made a list. I wrote down a list of some of the things I wanted to accomplish for myself.
Mhm.
That's first. Secondly, have an expectation to really um, tell yourself, like, look, Rome wasn't built in a day. You can't conquer all this in one day. And really take each task and each expectation you want to take for yourself as baby steps.
Mhm.
And that's the most important thing to where, because as you take baby steps, you start to really get in the weeds, really understand a lot of, all right, this is, if I do this the right way, not necessarily the quick way, right? Um, you begin to gain confidence in yourself. The pressure starts to come off, right? And that's kind of what I went through, right? I had to really look in the mirror and tell myself, like, look, um, Apple wasn't built in a day. You know what I mean? Some of these successful men out there are millionaires and successful business men
Right.
and women out there. It wasn't built in a day, and not saying that those people don't go through it, but there are different avenues and different things that you can really tell yourself to say, okay, let's be a little patient and do this the right way.
So in doing that, when we're looking at communication
Mm-hmm.
and like women, we have so many places for us to communicate. The
Yep.
salon, girls trips, weekend, boss babe brunch. Like we're doing all these things. But
Yeah.
what about the brothers creating a space that is safe for you all from a communication standpoint where you can be vulnerable and your orientation or your manhood is not being shaded or attacked?
Oh man, that's a very good question because I feel like men are kind of put in a box to where it's like, we've been relegated to, in order for men to have a good time or even have a conversation, we go to the bar or we go to a game or we go, gaming, or it's very rare that, well, not really rare, but men do take trips, right? But there's never a time where it's probably being talked about a little bit more,
Like
but
the waiting, like women, we have waiting to exhale moments. Like we cry,
correct.
yeah, like we do all the things, but
But women have ways to really say, hey girl, I need to talk to you, right?
yeah,
There's a little bit more grounded foundation to say, hey, when you're going out to lunch or dinner or whatever, right? You guys are having a conversation and you're being vulnerable with yourselves, right? And I think with men, it's very difficult sometimes to be vulnerable with each other because of certain answers you may get, certain responses you may get, and sometimes we as men, right, we can be very judgmental. We could be. It's very hard to be vulnerable with another man that may not view or see you as a way of like, okay, I know what you're going through. That may not have the best intentions with
right,
what you're saying to them, and it could also be, you know, we as men, there are a lot of men out there that don't have a good relationship with their fathers, right? I know I didn't. So a lot of that transitions to, if you don't have a lot of a good speaking terms, a good speaking relationship with your father, it's very hard to call your boys up and be like, I got a problem. A lot of us, and that's one of the problems with a lot of us men, we hold it in, we keep it in, and then as we've spoken before, we get frustrated, we blow up. A lot of it is we tend to make bad decisions, violence, anything. So I think, to tell the men today, if it was up to me, sometimes men know who they can trust. Whether
right.
you may have a mentor, there are a lot of men that are kind of going through the same things to where they're afraid to speak. And my answer to that be, find somebody you trust, speak up, and if you're not getting the response or the support you feel you need to get from that trusted person,
Mm,
you know, you need to step away from that
yeah.
individual.
Do you think
Go ahead.
kind of going to as far as like the grooming, like when we look at little girls and how we're
Yep.
groomed as
Uh-huh.
far as communication with our feelings, even our toys, they groom us for communication. And with little boys, it's more about keeping score, performance. It's more functional. I guess it's the best
Yeah.
way. It's more like trucks and
Yeah.
it's the G.I. Joe and the Hot Wheels track and the Transformers and the Rock'em Sock'em
Yep.
robots, all these things. But you can do those things, but there's really no communication involved. Versus our toys for girls was a phone, T sets where you're in a setting where you have to talk to people. But I don't have to talk if I got a green army man like this. So can you kind
Yeah.
of go into that a little bit as far as the grooming?
And I'm glad you said that, because equating that, a lot of little girls, they get dolls, they dress them up,
Right.
they're fixing their hair, but they're talking to them. A lot of men, a lot of the Transformers and different things like that, and Legos, they're building. It doesn't require a lot of communication. So I think the dynamic is you gotta be. It's hard. It's hard. Now thinking about it, it's a great example of, I think, men are trained to build and fix and lead, and and it's very and it's very hard to accept criticism. I think communication to men can sometimes come off as criticism, right? What am I doing wrong? If I'm doing something wrong, how can I fix it? Very defensive.
So do y'all
Very.
internalize that critique?
I'm sorry.
Do you all internalize the critique?
I know I do. I take it personally. As a man, I do take it personally.
Why?
I take it because it brings me down a notch to where I know I can be. That's a weakness for me. I know I can get better in that area. And when someone tells me or points it out to me, it's it's an area that if I don't get it fixed quick enough, right? It goes back to the performance anxiety. If I don't get it fixed quick enough, it's a notch on my belt to where it's a weakness. It makes me vulnerable. It makes me not good enough to to handle certain issues, right? Or to fix something within me. Just think about it. We as men, we're built to fix other people's problems and issues, but when it comes to our own, we're clueless, right? We're confused. We're not sure how. So it's very internal. I can say I take it personally, and I can definitely vouch for men who probably feel the same way that do take it personal also.
Yeah, I think as you're talking, I'm listening to you, but I'm also thinking about how we're groomed in reverse. Like we're
Yeah.
critiqued from the moment we get here. You
Yeah.
know, don't sit like this, girls sit like this, or what does it mean to be a lady, or even, pretty girls. And then in the South, you're looking at complexion, hair, there's
Yeah.
body type, like we're critiqued from the beginning. And
Mhm.
so we take it and run with it. Um, and I guess when we see us now being higher earners, it's because we've had all these critiques. So it's like, oh, so in order for me to be more marketable, I need another degree. Well, let me go do that, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
And so I think how we internalize the information, because the little girl in us, we want to be accepted, we want to be validated, to get that stamp. But then to hear you talk about it from the
Mhm.
other end of that spectrum, it's just blowing my mind how men, I guess, their natural pride, there's an innate pride in men to where the opposite, where you internalize that. And
And
we do too, but I think how we filter it may be a little different.
I just want to add to that. I think a man fixing a woman's issues, in my opinion, empowers a man to makes him feel empowered within the relationship. But in his mind, also validates the woman. But that's not necessarily the case, because sometimes women want to hear it. They want to be acknowledged. They want to be, bought the flowers and the date nights and feel appreciated. And I feel like sometimes for me, I could do that a lot better. And I think again, that's more of the criticism and the internal, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of the internal thing that I feel like communication does have that barrier and that boundary sometimes. Because we as men, I, my wife is not always on my mind, right? But sometimes when things are on my mind, like work or I had a bad day or like, money, those things kind of outweigh a lot of other things going on. And that's tough
But
for
that
men.
goes back into performance.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
So
we're back.
even yeah, so yeah, so even it's hard. It's very it is exhausting, but finding that right partner to be able to understand and can support you and talk to you through it, and you guys are interjecting with each other and communicating, is very important. But I do know the validation, the appreciation a woman needs. I know it's tough. It's
But men
tough.
need that same thing as well.
But
Or
for men, I feel like
or am I wrong? Let me know.
I feel like men need it maybe in a different way, right?
How.
Because communicate, uh, maybe I think it could be many different areas, right? Acts of service, maybe setting up different trips with the boys, right? Surprise birthday parties, maybe even because sometimes women, my wife speaking to me in words of affirmation, right? I appreciate it, but it's just one of those things where not a lot of men appreciate that. They want to feel like maybe take them out to dinner sometimes, right? And this is kind of advice maybe the ladies can take. Listen to your man, right? Sometimes when we don't need something, that's exactly what we kind of want, right? Like peace, or like we had a hard day, or like we want to feel like some of those things that a man is doing, like if a man is cooking all the time, or if a man's had a hard day at work and he's coming home and he's tired, sometimes that lovely voice a woman can do, that's really sometimes all a man needs, right? And I know a lot of the physical stuff with sex plays a part into it too, but not a lot of men want like the lavish things, like, and I feel like sometimes interpret it, and it's not, and it's
Like
not
India already said, the little things.
the little things, yeah, like I don't know, like you know a favorite team shirt, or like some shoes, or maybe going out to dinner.
It isn't always a
Um,
thing because we're hearing in our culture now, within our generation, men equating love affirmation to taskers, whether it's
okay.
like cooking, cleaning, and it's like, why are you attributing worth or value to a task? Because for some women, it sounds like, well, you just want a maid, or you just want, you know. But what about tackling and digging into for this topic? You're emotionally unavailable. Like I
Hmm.
can do all these things for you, but you're emotionally unavailable, and I think that's one of the problems in this narrative that we're hearing within our society now, within our culture, with this red pill, blue pill culture, is you can do all this stuff, but you're emotionally unavailable. And I think that's something that's not being heard, or it's being missed in the conversation.
So I think a lot of men are do. Whether are you speaking in terms of women always, doing the cooking and cleaning,
Not
but
just on that. I don't even want to get into that.
okay.
Just as far as being emotionally available, because when you're tired, when you're stressed out, when you're
Hmm.
going through so many things,
Hmm.
and we can say like, "Hey, babe, what's wrong?" You're just like, "Nothing," or you just get really quiet.
Hmm.
You're not talking, and you're just checked out. Whether it's stress, pressure, like you're not emotionally available. And so then she feels like, well, is it me? Is it
So
you? And so
so
that's
uh,
that's kind of where I want to go with that.
So I think a lot of it is I said a couple minutes ago, maybe I should get some clarity on it. Like
Yeah.
there are so many things sometimes swirling in our minds, especially for me. I feel like I'm constantly thinking sometimes,
Okay.
about different things, about different avenues. How can I be even more successful? You know what I mean? What are some, and always feeling like how can I be better than I was yesterday?
Okay.
And when those things are on our mind, it's hard to communicate that with our partner, with our mate, to say, so when it is stated, hey, what do you need? Is it me? Am I a problem? And sometimes we'll say, it's not you, it's nothing you're doing wrong. But I feel like, and you can kind of interject, as a woman, you may feel like, you have your intuitions, and you see a different behavior from your partner that you're not normally seeing. It's an issue for you guys, for women, right? And I totally understand that.
Yeah,
I
because we
totally
can
get
sense
that.
like, no,
You can
something's
sense
not
it,
right. Yeah.
but I feel, and I'm speaking from a male's perspective.
Okay.
There's a lot of pressure on men to feel like we have got to, almost like you're steering a boat, and you and your family are in the boat, and we're just steering this boat into the right direction so we don't crash. So what happens is, when you're steering a boat, you've got to look at all different directions.
Hmm.
And maybe that's something for our men to really communicate to our ladies, to feel like, okay, you know you got to clarify and communicate a little better, to say, hey, this is what's going on, this is how I feel, this is why I feel this way.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes in, to where if you're with the right partner, your partner can say, hey, what's going on, why do you feel this way, It doesn't have to be this way all the time. Be patient, take your time. And I think that's where, if we had a lot of male mentors out there, that's what I would say to a lot of our men out there, to say, hey, communicate with your lady, communicate with your partner to say, this is what's going on. I'm not having a good day. I'm stressed. I just kind of want to be in my thinking place. It's not you, but kind of elaborate on what's going on, right? So it doesn't affect your partner.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
It's really important, and appreciate your partner, right? Appreciate it.
That's really good. I think something that you said, you were like, I'm not having a good day. And I think sometimes when you're not having a good day, like for myself, sometimes I get really quiet and I just need a moment just to process what happened that moment, trying to analyze it. Or you know how you play conversations in your mind, kind of to yourself.
And not to interrupt you there, but I'm glad you brought that up. That's hard for men, because we as men, we as men, we sense that. And a lot of we sense that. We sense the right person, the right partner, depending on who you're with, right? And I know that could be tough if you're emotionally unavailable. But I know for me, when my wife comes in, she's quiet. I know she's had a hard day. I sense it right away, right? And that's just the observation in me. That's just the, okay, what's going on? Let me stop what I'm doing to see what's going on. But that situation you're speaking of right now, there are men out there that the way you're speaking of feel they need to fix that. That's a problem for them. That's an issue for them. They need to fix it. And I'm glad you kind of brought that situation up, because that happens a lot.
Yeah, I think with that, hey Jay, we have the second half of the Let's Rap podcast, and we're having a great conversation.
Yeah, I've been listening in the background. So,
do you think if you could face the light, then they would catch
yeah,
you?
give me 1 second. Let me. I'm switch real quick. So give me a second.
Cool. But while he's doing that, Phil, I
Yeah.
want to get back on the topic as far as with us, like even what I was saying with myself, just analyzing the moment, the situation, trying to figure out how I feel about it. And sometimes I do get quiet and I need to figure that out. It just kind of blows my mind just hearing you say that, in terms of like how it's easier for you to fix it, but then when we want to help you, then it's not reciprocated.
It's not reciprocated because we feel it's kind of a double-edged sword. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword to where we want to fix, our partner's issues, but we internally kind of want our partners to help us fix us too, but we don't want you to tell us, because that makes us vulnerable. That puts makes us a little weak.
So is that the pride? Is that the ego?
It's the ego. It's the pride and the ego, and it's it's tough. Believe me, it's tough.
Yes.
Jay, introduce yourself. Let the beautiful people know who you are and all the things that you do.
My name is what's up, y'all? My name is Jay Echo. I am the other half of the Let's Rap podcast. Apologize for being late. I am a IT professional, entrepreneur, podcaster, aspiring author, aspiring a whole bunch of things. I got a lot of ambition and don't know where to put it sometimes, but we're doing what we can. So
take it 5 minutes at a time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was sitting here with Phil. We're having a conversation, and we got into the portion of the conversation talking about the brothers being unemotionally available when they're going through performance exhaustion, and meaning you're going through so much in life, attempting to even with you telling us all the things that you do and just performing, hitting all these goals. But then you kind of plateau and kind of gas out, and then you're in a relationship, and then you're not available for that person because all this going on. And then she's like, "Well, hello, I'm over here," and you're not present. You're not present.
Yeah. I mean, I know, like Phil and I have had this conversation multiple times, and I think more men are starting to have the conversation, but I don't think we're having the conversation publicly.
No.
It's we we try our best to achieve all of the things, even though we don't necessarily have a path forward. So for instance, I remember Phil mentioning like we don't have father figures, or like put another way, we don't really have mentors, right? We'll see a thing that we're trying to accomplish, and then we'll essentially reinvent the wheel. Like we'll try and do everything ourselves, try to accomplish everything ourselves with nobody's help, because we believe that myth that as a man, you got to do it by yourself. You have to be able to provide by yourself. You have to. And I mean, part of that is true. Yes, part of that is like, as a man, you have to be able to support yourself, your family, and all of those sorts of things. But I think, going back to what you're saying about the gassing out and the performance anxiety and not being available, like, because we're trying to accomplish everything ourselves, we we ignore the support that is right next to us oftentimes,
Yeah.
and when we are in relationships, if it's a good relationship, ideally they should be a support, and this goes both ways. You should be supporting your partner, and your partner should be supporting you. But when you do get into that space of, like, oh, mortgage is due, plus I'm trying to start this business, plus my baby needs to get right in school, and all of this stuff, plus 100 other things that, I'm not even aware that other people have to deal with. You shut down, like you said. You shut down, and you don't even consider the fact that the other person is in it with you, because it's we take on so much ourselves, because we think that's what we're supposed to do, and that
Uh,
I
oh,
think
go
that
ahead.
goes on. I think that goes to the standards and expectations, not only that the world puts on us, but also that we put on ourselves. And, just based on, like you said, this this belief that we're supposed to be the ultimate dude, even though it takes time to grow to that person.
I'll add too. I think another piece of advice is, I think there's got to be an understanding that um, Jay kind of hinted at it, that people are going through so many things as a couple, and also external things individually. I think the most important thing, and I know it may be different for everybody, is that you got to understand when each other needs space. And I think what's going on is that we as men and women, we're in a relationship and we're feeling like we're supposed to be entangled and with each other 24/7. And that is not the case. And I think one of the things we gotta learn as people is that people need space, people need time to process, need time to think. And that's okay. That's okay. And I learned it the hard way. And I know there are men out there that don't really understand this, and women out there that don't understand this. But I'm just telling you from experience, right? Being married, being able to support each other and have peace. You've got to understand and have an understanding for each other that, hey, we got to have space for one another, for individual things too.
So I'm gonna ask you all this. This
Okay.
question came up while you were talking.
Yeah.
Do you gentlemen think, when there's too much space because somebody's like, oh, I need to think, it's double trauma? And the reason why I asked that question is because the last time the man became vulnerable, something happened, and then she weaponized his secret. And then on
That's
the other coin, if there's too much space on her end, it's because there was someone else. So now we're triggering each other. So I kind of playing devil's advocate with that question, but
Okay. Okay.
okay.
maybe
So let me add to that, right? I
okay.
think I
Thanks,
think
Alan.
oh yeah.
I got some thoughts.
Yeah, I got some thoughts too, so I won't take too long on this. So I think what happens is that if one person needs space to really clear things out and have a clear understanding of how they want to be vulnerable with their partner, and in response, their partner weaponizes it, I think there's a larger issue that there's a lack of trust. Now, on the other end, if a woman or a man needs their space to go out and step outside of the relationship, there's a deeper internal issue going on, right? And I feel like what happens is there's a difference between needing space to be able to really process your thoughts and reconnect than needing space to retreat and never connect again. There's a major difference with that. And I know sometimes we as men, when we hear things or communicate things, or even in a situation we don't like, we retreat. Same thing with a woman potentially, right? When they don't, we're not doing something, we're not saying something, they can retreat emotionally. And the most important thing is that you in a relationship have got to understand and figure out what makes you guys connect. Whether that may be words of affirmation, whether that may be acts of service, maybe that may be date nights, maybe that may be helping around the house, maybe that may be communicating, being that support system. I just feel like you have to be very careful when you're divulging information to your partner that you don't trust and they weaponize it and use it against you. You have to acknowledge and really be careful with that. It's happening on both sides, men and women. You've got to be very careful, and you've got to come to the decision to the fact that if I'm going to tell you something very vulnerable and is important to me and is being weaponized and used against me, you know, you got to tell yourself, is this the person I want to spend the rest of my life with? Knowing that, they can, just as much as she can build me up, she can tear me down, or vice versa. Just as much as he can build me up, he can tear me down. So, those are red, in my opinion, and I'll end with this. If those are the situations you're dealing with today, those are red flags, and they're deeper issues than communicated.
Good point, Jay.
Yeah. So I think I'll echo a lot of what Phil said in that, like, if somebody is weaponizing your vulnerability, then there's a deeper issue there in terms of, like, if this person should really be the person you are making your partner, making your husband, making your wife, making whatever, however you want to classify it.
Yeah.
But I think on the other side of that, some, and a lot of people aren't going to like when I say this, but somebody's going to have to lead with vulnerability. Somebody's going to have to take the first step and be like, hey, um, look, I am taking space because I'm trying to figure this out on my own, or I'm taking space because I'm worried that or if what's it called, or on the other side, it's like, the reason I don't want to give you space is because I'm afraid you're not going to come back. Like, being willing to have that conversation with, and it's a hard conversation to have because, again, you're sharing that vulnerability with somebody. You're opening yourself up to potentially have somebody weaponize your pain or your stress or your fear, whatever the case may be. But what and like Phil said, if that does ultimately happen, then that's usually what leads to, okay, I'm just not going to tell you and I'm going to figure it out on my own, or I'm going to retreat and I'm going to look for comfort someplace else, or I'm going to look for comfort in another person. It's the two are linked, whether we like to think of it that way or not. It's we've made this we've joked about it in a less sort of in a less sort of high stakes context when it's like, all right, look, let's say your coping mechanism or your stress relief or your processing is like, oh hey, I wanna play video games for today. That's how I'm feeling today. I need to play 2K for the afternoon. And your lady is like, well, why do you want to play 2K? Why don't you want to talk to me? Why don't you? It's like, look, it's not about you per se. It's just, this is how I decompress. This is
An
how
outlet. Yeah.
yeah, this is an outlet. It's like Phil was saying earlier. It's great that you are here to be another outlet for me, but sometimes we need that space to release before we can come to you and start having conversations and discuss and all of that, those other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's really good. I think both parties should have outlets outside of their husband or boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Just because you had, I always say, there was a life before you, and you
Yeah.
had other things. I think sometimes we look for people to be our end all, and they're not. That's not fair. I think it's so unfair to
Yeah.
lay all
It's a
that on
mistake.
the person. It's very selfish, and that
Yeah.
expectation, in my opinion, is very unrealistic. And I believe people in your life, each person has a purpose,
Mhm.
and if you and that person can talk about certain things, fine, but other things may be too heavy for them, and that's why they have things called therapists. Hello,
Yeah.
where you can lay those heavier things at their feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I think social media is great, but it's harmed us because we get these flashes of images of hashtag relationship goals and the
Yeah.
perfect people, and then when someone
Yep.
breaks their divorce, it's like, oh no, because if they can't make it, and it's like idolatry kind of. We worship these people. You think they're just, and it's like, no, they're just showing you highlights, flashes of their life, and it's not real. And I think that maybe
Yeah.
it's best you doing what works best for you and your household. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're cute together, whatever, but when you log off of the gram or you're off TikTok and they're doing these fake destination trips, that cost thousands and thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
you have to sit and look at this person across the table. And this is a real person that's had real experiences before you, it has more experiences with you, and you're doing life together. And I feel like it's very important. Be friends, get to know each other, learn each other's
Mhm.
quirks. Why are you such in a
Yep.
rush to jump from hey guy to all of a sudden, girl, that might be my husband? Like, whoa,
Yeah.
sis, slow down. Like, you don't even know his middle name yet. Why are you already making your wedding visual board on Pinterest? That's creepy and weird of the conversation.
Yeah.
But it's just like, get to know each other first. Be friends. How can you love me if you don't even like who I am as a person?
And the
And I
funny,
know
oh,
I
go
love
ahead.
you today, but dude, you get on my nerves today. Like, it happens. So it's just like, be friends, learn each other's love languages, learning how you communicate. Learn each other first before you just want to just jump the broom. Like, let's slow this thing down.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's funny because we've we've what's it called? We create our own monsters, so to speak, right? Like you said, we'll put the idea of something on a pedestal, and it even goes back to the like performance exhaustion thing, right? We'll put the idea of something on a pedestal without recognizing all that it takes to get to that pedestal. Either that, or we'll put it up on a pedestal, and then when we won't even realize that we're already doing the thing. We've blinded ourselves to the we can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak, right? So, like, in terms of relationships, like, we'll sit here and we'll like you said, we'll be on the gram looking at looking at people's vacations, looking at people's wed destination weddings and all of that sort of stuff. Meanwhile, meanwhile you're ignoring the person who's sitting in front of you, just or you're discounting the fact that, oh, the person next to you makes you laugh all the time, or makes you smile all the time, or brings you peace all the time, but you're mad because, oh, we don't go to Dubai on a regular basis, or we don't go to Turks and Caicos, or he's not taking me to Ruth's Chris on a regular basis, or she doesn't what's it called, she's not shaped like Megan the Stallion, or whatever foolish unrealistic expectations we put on each other without, like you said, getting to know the actual person. And the other side of it is like, the ideal is not always what it's cracked up to be, right? Like we see all the time, like these idols, these celebrities, and these folks that we put on pedestals.
Mhm.
And especially now, we're finding out that, oh, it turns out this person is kind of a jerk in real life, and you're just like, oh,
Bro, Will and Jada have been separated since 2016. Like what?
yeah, you'll start hearing stuff like that, and you're just like, oh, I thought they were goals, and it's like, no, because that's
a
not.
nightmare.
So I'll add to that. And I've kind of hinted at this before, and I just want to kind of hint at it again. I think the problem, the true problem is that we as men and women, we go on dates, we're spending time with each other, but I don't think people understand that being in a relationship and being, potentially marrying someone or being married, it's a risk. It's a risk to your peace. It's a risk to your reputation. It's a risk to your finances. It's a risk to your physical health, emotional health, mental health. So we're so enamored with the way a person looks, so enamored with the way a person dresses, and we're so enamored how they present themselves on dating apps, IG, TikTok, that a lot of those red flags that we should really observe and make critical decisions. Does this red flag is a life, can I live with this, right?
Yeah.
Can I
Breakers are the non-negotiables, and sometimes I feel like we will walk down a red flag all the way to
Yep.
if
We'll carry the red flag. We'll carry it on our back, and you know what I mean. And we see IG, and we see the trips and all that, and it's like, wow, I should have that, right? Wow, this is what it takes to be in a relationship. Wow, this is what a relationship is. But you don't know the risks that those two people are having in their homes or what they got going on. So when we do see, a lot of, when I see those things on social media, my first thought is like, man, they was just saying one thing on IG last week, or portraying a certain image on TikTok last week, right? That in the back of my mind, I'm like, real life hit. So, that's just how it is. It's a risk. It's just you got to find the right partner. So
and one more thing.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Point. A lot of those trips, people don't know. If you have over so many followers, a lot of those trips are sponsored by hotels, so the hotel gets a nod in the reel.
Okay.
So they're like going to Dubai, but if you have 2 million followers and you're plugging, I don't know, the W in Bali, and you shoot the hotel in the reel,
yeah,
that's a kick. Anyway, people.
I'm not going to complain. Give us a kickback. I'll go to Bali and Dubai. Yeah, no, I understand.
Or you get, I don't know, 1,000 sky miles.
Yeah,
your trip was free because
they're people are thinking that they're paying that out of pocket, and that's not always the case. Yeah.
On this before we wrap up, this is such a good conversation, and I have an announcement. People are like, what? But so touch deprivation. And this term came to me a couple weeks ago. I was reading listening to something, and it was talking about statistically, little Black girls get less hugs, and they're told, "I love you" less, and you're pretty less than their non-Black counterparts. So it made me think, what do those numbers look like for our little Black boys that are not hugged? Look, Jay's already like, oh man.
Oh yeah. I can't wait to tackle this.
And then how that plays out when you go into being a teenager and into manhood.
So, okay. So, go ahead, Jay.
So I was actually thinking about this recently. So we don't share too many personal details on the show, but like I have two siblings, right? I have two brothers, and I realized recently that like we don't hug like that. Like I may dap you up every now and again, like if you're going on a trip, but outside of that, it's like, yo, how you living? And then we keep it pushing. Like I have more physical contact with my mother than I do with my father, my brothers. Like I'll have more physical contact with like even Phil sometimes than I do with my own brothers. And that's just how I was, like that's just what it was. Like it wasn't something I thought about. It wasn't something that that we did intentionally. But more and more I'm noticing like there's a lack of physical contact that a lot of us deal with. And most of the time, you're only getting that physical contact when it's like, oh, you're only getting that physical contact when something has happened, not just as a, hey, I'm checking in with you, bro. How you doing? Or not just as a, oh, hey, I'm greeting you. Like we'll dap each other up, but that's the extent of how it goes. Like, I don't know how many, like, I bet you if you polled your audience right now and asked them, when did you just hug a male friend? When was the last time you hugged a male friend? Not dapped him up, but actually hugged another male counterpart. Your numbers would look terrible because that's just not something we do. And it's just not something that we like we had an event, what's it called? We had an event last week, basically. Last week or the week before. And that was the most hugs I had gotten in like all year, just because it was like, oh, we're greeting folks we haven't seen in almost a year and all of that sort of stuff. And it's just like, okay, well, you notice it when you're actually getting the contact, but before that, it's just something you don't even care about. And you don't realize how much you need it until, like I said, you are in a space where you are getting it. And you're like, oh, this feels good. Like it may not register as like I should actively pursue this in the rest of my day-to-day life, but it's just sort of like okay, this is nice. Yeah. And you don't even think about it.
So this is kind of my thought on it, and I hope I don't get much grief for this, but I think it all. I know probably.
No, this is a safe space here. We don't do that.
Not for us.
I think it starts with a lot of our single mothers out there teaching men teaching boys how to be men. So what are mothers? They're nurturers, they're carers, they're hugging their sons, right? They're kissing their sons, right? So when they grow to men, they're taught to do that with their partner, their woman, right? Doing the same things their mother, on a touch basis with their partner. But when it comes to men, as far as the father, what are we doing? We're instilling discipline. We're disciplining in as far as, you're not supposed to do that. We're not kissing our boys when they go to school. We're not holding our boys' hands to cross the street. We're not, hugging our boys, when they get on the school bus, or hugging our boys when they come off the school bus. Why? Because that's kind of this machismo thing to where we're teaching, we as fathers, well, not yet, but us as men, as fathers, are teaching our boys to have this such a strong exterior that when we dap other men up, to show support or show love, and to show that men. It's not even on any type of gay tip. It's on like to show our love and support. Women are hugging women all the time. Women are touching women all the time to show their vulnerable side. But we as men, we're not doing that with men because we view it as weak. We view it as gay. We view it as right. It's just whack, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that, and I've seen it with a lot of, just based off of Jay saying this event, men appreciate that, right? When it's judge free, right? Um, shaking, like when you go into an interview, you shake the person's hand, right? When you're going to a funeral, you're hugging men. Why does it take in a saddened or emotional state to be able to show our men love, right? There's somebody out there that just a simple handshake and say, "Hey, bro, how you doing?" Is it shows that it separates you from like understanding that men need that brotherly love, that mentor to feel. That's what kind of, we talk about open space. That's what opens the door of communication, right? Not saying it's gay, not saying it's weak, but I feel like we as men, as fathers, should really evaluate and teach our boys to say, hey, respect your elders, respect another man, but also show that man love. Not even on some, like, society has taught us that it's weak, it's gay, it shouldn't be done. It makes us vulnerable. It makes us emotional, and that's not always the case. Just because you're dapping another man up or hugging a man up, that doesn't mean you're weak or you're not strong. It just shows your vulnerable side. To, like, we as men, we need each other, because there's going to be times where, like you said earlier, women do get on our nerves. We don't have that strong woman in our life right now. What's the right way to do it? So I'm sorry to get off my little soapbox, but
No, I mean, this is why we're having these conversations.
yeah, yeah.
Saying that, because I asked this question to my guest last week, Antoine Aiken, and he is a licensed trauma psychotherapist, and he's also a professor at a university. And I asked him that question. He brought up a very valid point. And he said, with young men, because not being taught that, you get two extremes. Either the only time that they do touch, particularly with other women, it's in a sexual
Yep.
place,
Yep.
or it's aggressive. There's no in
There's
between.
no middle ground.
There's no middle ground. Excuse me.
Yeah.
It's only from a sexual context, or it's out of violence.
Yeah.
And it seems like, particularly for our Black men, being taught that growing up, it's okay to hug, it's okay to communicate how you feel, because the analogy, a little girl follows scrape her knee, oh, come here, and she can cry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the boy, he's 4 years old. Why are you calling him little man? He's not a man, he's a boy. He's 4.
Yeah.
Let him cry. It's not going to make him any less, of a man. He's a child. If he falls, it hurts. Because if you scrape your knee, it hurts. Like, let it go.
And I mean, the other side of that is, I mean, and unfortunately, it took me till I reached some semblance of adulthood to figure this out. It's like, that's I mean, Phil, like, people will say it's weakness, but it's the opposite. Like, being able to go up to your brother and just, like, look, I see you're going through a rough time, man. Do you need a hug, or whatever the case? Being like, strength comes in multiple forms, right? Like, I don't think we'd look at a woman who doesn't hug her child or doesn't show affection to her husband and say, like, and immediately say, oh, that's a strong Black woman. We'd more often than not, we'd be like, are you, ma'am, are you okay? Like, what's going on? Like, are you? But turn it the other way and look at a man who won't tell his son he's proud of him, who won't show affection to his wife unless they're in their bedroom or whatever the case may be. And it's like, oh, that's a strong Black man. And it's like, there's a disconnect there. There's a cognitive dissonance that we need to address. And it's unfortunate that the conversation doesn't happen, because so many of us, like we said, we pigeonhole ourselves into other people's idea of what manhood is instead of defining it for ourselves.
Right.
I mean, and yes, it is great to have mentors. In fact, I'd say it's important to have mentors. But part of mentorship, like for that person to be a mentor, they have to be willing to reach out to somebody else. They have to be willing to open up to somebody else. They have to be willing to, like, all of the things that show vulnerability. For a mentor to come to you and be like, "Hey, bro, don't do that." They have to be willing to say, "Don't do that because I did the same thing, and this is the results I got, and this is the pain I went through because of it." Because let's be real about it. If you just tell somebody not to do something and they still have it in their head that they want to do that thing, they're going to do the thing. But if you explain to that person, like, "Hey, don't do that because X, Y, and Z," and you give them real world examples of, "Hey, this is where it went left for me," you have a better chance of influencing that person instead of, I'm just this what's it called, this light on a hill preaching from on high telling you, thou shalt not.
Right.
It's, I understand we like to, and this isn't a religious thing or anything like that, but like we learn by seeing examples, and we also learn by doing. And the only reason we share examples and we see examples is because somebody else puts that foot forward. And unfortunately for Black men, it's only recently that we are starting to see Black men come forward and say, like, "Hey, yeah, I hug my son all the time," or, "Hey, yeah, I'll what's it called? Me and my son, like, I can't remember who it was,
I
but
listen to Jason Wilson, and I listen to Jay Barnett a lot, and I
mm,
love their conversations as far as men hugging, affirming each other, having those spaces. So I definitely can understand where you're going with that. So
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, there was there used to be a time, and not to go all, oh, back in my day, because I'm not that old. But there used to be a time when, like, you would hang out with your boys, and it wasn't, "Oh yeah, unless we're just drinking, or we're just smoking, or we're just going to the game." It was like, nah, like, men used to go out, like, for lack of a better term, men used to go out on dates. It's just like, "What you doing, bro?" "Oh, we're going out." "Okay, cool. Where we going?" "I don't know. We'll figure it out." Bet. And y'all would just spend a day together and hang out. And it was just like, all right, cool. Now if you do that, like Phil said, it's like, that's a little suspect, bro. What we doing? Where we going? What's our purpose? What's our task? Like, all of that sort of stuff. It's just like, nah, I can't just hang out with my boy. I can't tell my boy I love him. Otherwise,
they
I'm
screaming pause every
soft.
other sentence. Pause.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Pause. It's
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
bruh, and the funny thing is, nobody was thinking of it in that context until you said something. So you're essentially, we destroy it for ourselves, so to speak, right? Because like I have I've only recently, and I'm still kind of uncomfortable with it, but I've only recently started telling people that I love them. Like my mom, I would tell her I love her all the time, just because, that's mom,
Yeah.
obviously. But I've only recently started getting comfortable with the idea of telling friends, telling family that, like, yo, I love y'all.
Yeah.
And and even then, I'll say it in a joking way, or I'll caveat it in some way. It's like, "I love y'all, but I can't stand you sometimes," like stuff like that, where it's like, I can't just put it out there. There has to be a caveat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. I cannot wait. We are going to pause this conversation only because I do want to make a quick announcement. First of all, thank you to everyone for tuning in. We have people popping in and out. I know it's the middle of the week, Bible class night for a lot of us, but it's all good. I do want you gentlemen to also drop in a takeaway and where people can contact you on social media. But before that happens, I do want to make a couple of what I call little church announcements. Tomorrow night, Recondius O'Brien, he's coming back to be here with me at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time here on the Speaker Podcast. And then Saturday, we're going to flip this thing around and I'm sitting down. I'm going to be in the hot seat with these gentlemen of the Let's Rap Podcast this Saturday at 2 o'clock. Oh, Jesus. So they're going to be like, oh, yeah, we got you now, shorty. This time. I'm going to be
can't wait for this one. Can't wait for this one.
So you got us over here speaking on feelings and whatnot. We got you.
Yeah.
I think I'm in good hands. So I trust you. So will that be Eastern or Central Time for the
Eastern? But we'll confirm with that after the show. We want to make sure we're all on the same page on that one.
For sure.
So we'll confirm with that after the show.
No problem.
After our show, yeah. Make sure.
And be sure, if you have not done so, to like, comment, subscribe, share this amazing conversation. Also, gentlemen, any takeaways or nuggets from this conversation, and then where people can contact you on social media?
Oh man, so my takeaway is I've said it a couple of times now that learning yourself, right? Taking baby steps, being able to understand and realize that space is a good thing when you're with the right person, and just being able to understand your partner, being able to talk and speak on the terms of what you both need, and understanding that there's got to be some grace and some joy to be able to sit down and have the tough conversations, but giving each other what you need and want, right? As far as where you can find us, we're pretty much everywhere. We're on TikTok at Let's Rock Podcast. Make sure you guys, if you guys see us, same handle, Let's Rock Podcast on YouTube. You can find me on The Real Philosophical 23, also on IG. If you look at our Instagram, it's going to have a link tree there. It has all our YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're also available on all streaming platforms: Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts,
Anchor,
Spotify. Yeah. So make sure you guys, like, share, comment, let us know what you think. Whether you like us or not, let us know. We definitely take all types of criticism. So yeah.
You guys are cool. Like, this is really good and safe conversation. So I'm excited. And I do want to bring you all back. So
we're definitely open. It's kind of the same thing with our show. Also, I think we can't wait to have you on. So
Jay.
Yeah. So my handle is j.echo on Instagram, but Facebook, J Echo. I try to avoid other social media platforms. So if you're not going to find me on IG or Facebook, then unfortunately you ain't going to find me. But in terms of my takeaways, I think my biggest takeaway is we need to start having more honest conversations about what type of men we want to be and what type of people we want to be. You know, are we doing it for the look, for the gram, for the plug, or are we doing it for, like, is it benefiting us in any way? Right? Like, are our relationships benefiting us? Are our conversations benefiting us? Are our spending habits benefiting us? Like, what the overall goal, or at least for me, the overall goal of a relationship, of a career, of all of these sorts of things is to get to a better place. And if it does not build me up in some way, then what am I doing it for? And I think if we have honest conversations with ourselves about if the actions and the choices we are making are helping or hurting us, I think everybody, not just men, not just women, I think everybody will come out a little better.
That's good stuff. I like that, Jay. So with that being said, everyone, thank you so much, gentlemen, for sitting down out of your busy schedule to talk to me. And I look forward to part 2 or whatever we doing on Saturday. I'm here for whatever, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's great. For those that have not done so, be sure to follow me on my Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of the places. Go there to like, share, and subscribe. The podcast, we are streaming across the virtual platforms like AfriPods, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon Audible, all those places. I'm there as well. New streaming episodes will be coming on later on. Those are in the works in the background. And yeah, I'll see you all tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with my guest Recanius O'Brien. And I'm going to be on the Let's Rock podcast this weekend. So as I say back in the day, check your local listings because we're going to announce that soon. And I'm going to chat with you guys after this and hang on. And everybody, good night. Be blessed. Be safe. Bye.